The Prometheus Initiative, First Response. Day 10 of the Shakedown cruise. The bridge of the UES Prometheus was a place of deep shadow and quiet focus. Located on Deck 2, buried deep within the armored heart of the ship, it felt less like a window to the stars and more like a submarine's control room, a CIC built for war. The air, still carrying the faint, sterile scent of new composites and fresh circuitry, hummed with the barely audible thrum of the most powerful reactor ever built by human hands.
Colonel
Alejandro Miguel Castillo-Garcia stood on the raised central command deck, his hands clasped behind his back. At 51, his compact, powerful build was all functional athleticism, the product of a lifetime in the United Earth Marines. He wore the crisp, two-piece charcoal gray duty uniform of the UEC, though its cut was subtly different from the Starfleet issue worn by the rest of his crew. A small but constant reminder that he was a ground pounder set in command of spacers. He hadn't yet grown comfortable in the command chair that sat empty behind him. He preferred to stand, to watch his crew, to learn the rhythm of this new and alien world. Down in the forward pit, Lieutenant Colonel Kalen Reed leaned back in the helm station's chair, a picture of coiled energy simmering under a layer of boredom. Her fiery crimson hair was cut in a sharp, asymmetrical bob, a slash of color in the muted grays of the bridge. Her hands, resting on the cockpit-style flight controls, guided the 9-million-ton dreadnought through another lazy diagnostic with an ease that was almost insulting.
Course correction diagnostics complete, again.
She sighed, her voice a low murmur across the bridge.
Any other brilliant tests for us today, Commander Valdez? Maybe see if the inertial dampeners can handle me doing a barrel roll?
The reply came over the internal comms, the voice of Lieutenant Colonel Jocelyn Valdez, amused, calm, and unshakable.
Negative on the barrel roll, Lieutenant. Colonel Reed, try not to scratch the paint. We're still paying it off.
On the upper port tier, at the science station, Captain Xy'lar Vess was anything but bored. Petite and radiating a barely contained energy, she leaned towards her console, her honey-brown eyes wide with genuine excitement.
Colonel, gas giant designated 3 Gamma is exhibiting a fascinating magnetospheric flux,
She reported, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm.
The gravimetric shear is, well, it's beautiful. Request permission to launch a probe.
Castillo-Garcia allowed himself a warm, paternal smile.
We're here to test the ship, Captain, not the local weather. Make a note for the survey team that follows.
The quiet routine was shattered by a single word from the pit.
Colonel?
Lieutenant Kenji Tanaka sat bolt upright at the operations console. Slender and quiet, his jet-black fringe of hair typically obscured his features, but now his visible eye was wide with sharp intensity.
I'm detecting a signal. Faint, heavily degraded.
The professional calm of the bridge evaporated. Every head turned to ops.
Project it, Lieutenant.
Castillo-Garcia commanded. The massive holographic display at the front of the bridge shimmered to life, replacing the serene starfield with a 3-dimensional image of a crackling, chaotic energy wave. A burst of sharp static erupted from the speakers.
Signal is non-human.
Tanaka reported, his fingers a blur across his console.
High-band transmission. Multi-layered encryption. It's Xy'lar.
The static sharpened. A voice came through, high-pitched and logical, yet strained with a panic that bled through its precise cadence. It spoke in the complex, flowing language of humanity's allies. Tanaka listened, his head tilted, his expression grave.
It's a distress call.
He translated, his own voice tense and quiet.
From a Xy'lar agricultural colony. On our charts, it's designated Demeter. The Xy'lar call it Xy'lar.
He pronounced the alien name with perfect, reverent fluency.
They're under attack.
At the starboard tactical station, Captain Soren Vallis spun in his chair. His platinum blonde hair and ice-blue eyes seemed to reflect the cold, analytical light of the galactic map that appeared on his screen.
Colony Demeter is on the fringe of their territory, 30 light-years away. Starfleet and Xy'lar fleet assets are at least 72 hours out.
Reed looked up from the pit, her emerald green eyes locking with the colonel's. Her boredom was gone, replaced by a hawk-like intensity.
The hyperdrive is spooled up from the last test. We can make the jump in under 5 hours. Sir, we're the only ones in range.
This was it. The moment the simulations ended and reality began. Castillo-Garcia looked at the faces of his young, brilliant, untested crew. He walked to the command chair and, for the first time, sat. It fit.
Mr. Tanaka, send a Priority 1 message to Starfleet Command. Inform them we are diverting to render aid to our allies.
He paused, his voice steady and clear, filling the silent bridge.
The shakedown is over.
He turned to Reed.
Lieutenant Colonel, plot a jump for Demeter. Get us there as fast as you can.
A grim, sharp smile touched Reed's lips.
Yes, sir.
The holographic display swirled into a vortex of hyperspace coordinates, pulling the future toward them. The exit from hyperspace was a jarring, gut-wrenching lurch. The holographic display cleared, revealing a war zone. The Xy'lar orbital station, a thing of graceful rings, was a mangled wreck. Debris littered the space around the colony world of Demeter. A single, brutal-looking raider vessel was latched onto the station like a parasite. Its asymmetrical, cobbled-together hull an ugly scar on the canvas of space. Without warning, it detached and fired. A volley of sloppy red plasma and a cloud of kinetic slugs raced toward them. The crew braced for an impact that never came. The ship was hit by a solid, violent jolt, a physical shock from the kinetic slugs. But the alarms only chirped once, a polite, almost questioning sound, before silencing.
Report!
Castillo-Garcia's voice cut through the stunned silence. Vallis stared at his console, his professional calm shattered by disbelief.
Their plasma ejectors are low yield. The barrier dispersed the energy with 99.1% efficiency. The kinetic slugs were vaporized on impact.
He looked up, his ice-blue eyes wide.
Sir, their weapons are statistically insignificant.
They had expected a fight, not a gnat hitting a windscreen. From the pit, Reed let out a low whistle.
They don't know that,
Castillo-Garcia said, his mind already racing.
Vallis, run a power signature scan on their vessel, then give me a disabling solution.
Aye, Colonel. Scanning.
A new window of data scrolled across Vallis's screen. His expression grew more grim.
Power source is a standard fusion core, dangerously overclocked. Defenses are a navigational deflector grid, overcharged. Total capacity is negligible.
He paused, his voice now heavy.
Sir, a direct hit from any of our primary or secondary energy weapons will result in a catastrophic failure of their hull. Their ship cannot handle the energy transfer.
The colonel processed the new, horrifying information.
Are missiles an option? Can we detonate a Titan warhead off their bow, disable them with the EMP?
Negative, Colonel. At this range, the blast would heavily damage the Xy'lar station. We have no non-lethal options that can guarantee the safety of the colony.
The colonel's jaw tightened. The first command decision of the mission, and it was an impossible one.
Understood,
he said, his voice a low growl of frustration.
Target their primary engine housing. Use a single secondary plasma cannon. Bring it down to 10% power. 10%!
Aye, sir,
Vallis replied, his hands flying across the console.
Dorsal plasma cannon is online. Firing one cannon, 10% yield.
A single, brilliant, egg-shaped pulse of blue-white energy lanced out from the Prometheus. It crossed the void in a silent, terrible instant. A pathetic flicker of a shield grid appeared around the raider for a microsecond before it was utterly consumed. The pulse, even at 1/10 of its strength, struck the aft section of the raider. The enemy ship's entire rear third was obliterated in a silent, blinding flash. Dead silence fell upon the bridge. The crew stared, horrified and awestruck. They had tried to be careful. They had tried to hold back. It hadn't mattered.
My God,
Reed whispered from the pit.
Their shielding signature was standard for a scavenger-class vessel.
Vess murmured, her voice trembling slightly.
It should have absorbed at least 40% of that impact. The energy transfer was total. The physics are impossible.
Castillo-Garcia, his face a mask of shock and profound regret, rose slowly from his command chair. He looked at the ruin they had just created. then at the stunned faces of his crew.
Lieutenant Colonel Reed,
He said, his voice low but carrying to every corner of the silent bridge.
let's update the ship's procedures. From now on, a full power signature scan on any potential hostile is mandatory before we return fire. We are not cold-blooded killers.
He looked back at the holographic display, his jaw tight.
We will log this as a mistake of not understanding what this ship can do.
The weight of his order hung in the air, the first law of the new era they had just violently entered. The pristine sickbay was a place of controlled chaos. Dr. Elias Thorne moved between the emergency biobeds with a practiced calm, his lanky frame a steady presence. The injured Xy'lar, logical even in their pain, attempted to analyze their own wounds. The cellular damage is inconsistent with the energy weapon's dispersal pattern, one stated. A logical fallacy exists in my wound.
Your cells don't care about logic, son.
Thorne replied without looking up, his voice a gravelly baritone.
They just care about healing. Now hold still.
Colonel Castillo-Garcia entered, his grim expression taking in the scene. He and the doctor shared a silent, knowing look across the room. It was all that was needed. This was the cost. Thorne gave a slight nod. I've got this. And the colonel departed. On the wrecked orbital station, the scene was eerie. An away team moved through the floating debris.
Their cutting torches were inefficient.
Captain Vallis noted, his analysis cold and precise.
Scavengers.
Captain Vess, however, was kneeling by a damaged Xy'lar console, a crystalline lattice that pulsed with a faint light.
They were after this.
She whispered.
Agricultural research. Genetic sequencing for terraforming grade crops. They weren't raiding for weapons. They were stealing food.
A Marine team had boarded the crippled Carrion Raider. They found 5 survivors huddled on the jury-rigged bridge, a scrappy reptilian species, thin and terrified. The sergeant's voice came over the comm to the colonel.
They keep asking the same question, sir. They want to know what kind of monster ship we have.
The next day, a Xy'lar command ship arrived. It was a thing of beauty, a flowing organic vessel shaped like a nautilus shell, its pearlescent hull shifting in the starlight. On the Prometheus's bridge, the holographic display showed a regal, composed Xy'lar captain.
We are in your debt, Colonel Castillo-Garcia,
The captain's translated voice stated.
Our own fleet is still 2 days away. It is a testament to your crew that you were able to respond so quickly.
We were only 5 hours out when we got your call, Captain.
Castillo-Garcia replied. The Xy'lar paused, its large, dark eyes blinking slowly.
Colonel, that is not possible. The system you jumped from is over 2,500 light-years from here. Such a journey would take a minimum of 10 standard hours in our fastest vessel.
On the bridge, a second wave of shock rippled through the crew. Reed, Valdez, Valise. They all stared, processing this new impossibility. Castillo-Garcia held the Xy'lar captain's gaze, his own expression unreadable.
The Prometheus has a few new tricks, Captain,
He said smoothly.
We'll be happy to share our performance data with your science ministry.
Later, in the darkness of the observation lounge, Colonel Castillo-Garcia stood alone, watching the serene, scarred planet below. Dr. Thorne entered, holding 2 mugs of coffee. He handed one to the colonel.
Not the shakedown you were expecting, Alex.
Thorne said quietly.
No,
Castillo-Garcia replied, taking a slow sip.
it's not.
He looked at his old friend, his expression heavy with a weight that wasn't there 2 days ago.
They're just kids, Eli. Brilliant kids. But today, they stopped being students. We all did.
He turned back to the window. He now commanded the most powerful, fastest ship in the known galaxy, and he and his young crew were completely unprepared for what that meant. The UES Prometheus glided silently through space, holding a protective orbit. The slight scorch marks on its hull were the only signs of its first battle. It was a giant that had just awakened, its mission forever changed.